So I don't know if you're seeing this, Sammy, but there's a video that was that happened last week. Caleb Williams is out there enjoying life, engaging in a Packers suck chant, and to me, and I don't want to say it's goofball stuff, but I will say this about Caleb Williams, and this goes back to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago about the claw and everything else. And this isn't a shot at anybody else who's been a quarterback of the Chicago Bears, who has played for the Chicago Bears, or anything else. It's hard to imagine or hard to remember a guy, and especially a high profile guy, like the first overall pick in the draft, who is so enthusiastic about being a member of the Chicago Bears. And I know a lot of the haters are like, his PR team got, okay, fine. I don't care if his PR team got to him. Like, he's doing the things that helps ingratiate yourself into a fan base. And it was like, it's much, and again, I don't want to take shots at anybody, and this isn't a shot at anybody else, but like when Justin Fields, and I don't want to keep going back to Justin or Mitch Trubisky or Jay or anybody like that. There are guys love being in the NFL, they're busy, whatever. Caleb is just different. And Caleb is out there engaging in all the stuff that fans do. He's going to ball games. He's doing this. He's doing the claw. He's chanting Packers suck and all that stuff. And it's actually refreshing. Like, you kind of want to see that. Like, again, I know that I've told the story multiple times about Jaquan Brisker and I, like, saying something about the Packers last year at this Cam Hayward Celebrity Club, which, by the way, I will be there again this July in Pittsburgh or Washington, Pennsylvania. So you want that stuff. Like, as fans, these players come and go, and we're going to be here the whole time. So when you see a player go out there and kind of embrace it, it's refreshing, and you love seeing it. And I love seeing it out of Caleb Williams. And it's interesting because the Packer fans, as much as they think that we're a joke, like, you guys haven't beaten us since 1940, whatever it is. Like, then why do you care so much? Like, it's always so interesting. Like, the Packer fans, they're so fragile for a fan base of, like, an alleged successful fan base or a franchise. Like, they're so fragile. Who cares? Like, why are you bothering us? Why are you in our mentions? Like, there was a couple of kids on the Instagram who were sitting there making posts about me. And I'm like, you guys, could you be more fragile? They're like, you're here commenting. I'm like, well, you're tagging me, idiot. Like, you're stalking me. Like, please stop. I don't care. I don't go to Packer sites or anything like that. But and anyways, that's a story for another day. We got a great show coming up for you. So, Sammy, let's just go ahead and start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
It's Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It's Wednesday night. You know what that means? It is time for Take It to the Rank. Great show for you tonight. Clay Harbor will be joining us at some point this evening to talk about the Bears and their mandatory mini camps over the last couple of days. But going back to that thing about the Packers, again, it is very interesting to me that the Packer fans are so, like, they always just feel like they're always in our mentions. Like, I don't know. I don't spend a lot of time on Packers Twitter. I don't care. I know there's that one guy that's like Peter Burkowski or whatever. Outside of like Aaron, like outside of our friends, like Aaron and Tom, like I engage with them because I'm friends with them. But like other rando like I have no interest. I don't care. I know the Packers have been very successful. I know they've had a great run against us over the last number of years. None of that stuff matters to me because Caleb Williams, that's all BC. Everything BC does not matter anymore. Like before Caleb, I don't care about. I'm all about AD. Chicago Bears AD after the draft. What is going? That is my main focus right now. And if you want to sit there, and I know that the Packers, like there is no team, I know that we get accused of this a lot. There is no team that lives in the past more than the Packers. Like 100%. Like I was sitting there, Aaron had posted something from some Packers bar over by their training facility or something like that, where it was like, hey, and on the wall, it has like Packers World Championships. And you really don't think about it. You when you look at it, you're like, God, they haven't won S in a while. Like really, I know they've won more recently than us, and they were great Super Bowls. What was it, 31 and 46 and or 45, excuse me. And you're like, that's it. Like, yeah, like you've had success and you've done pretty well for yourselves. But when you look at it, stuff painting on a wall, and I know it's embarrassing for the Bears, 85. I get it 40 years ago. Oh, I understand. Listen, I know the math. I know what I'm talking about, but it's not as bad as people make it out to be. I think of like other franchises too, like the Dodgers. Like the LA Dodgers have not won a full season World Series since 88. And you're like, God, like it's been a long time for you. Like how do you go? Which is why they probably like worry about winning their glorified spring training thing that they did in Texas. But like, yeah, like it's a lot, but you run your mouth a lot for a team. And again, I know ironic coming from a Bears fan, but it's interesting to me. And it's interesting, like how often you see Packers people in Bear, like I never engage in like Vikings post or Lions post or anything like that. The only thing is recently I went back to look because I'm going to be dropping my predictions on NFL.com. As a matter of fact, I've recorded them all. If you ask nicely, I have the graphic for the Bears one up. It's so glorious. Our editor was like, you know what? Like, this is amazing. Like, he's like, you're a crazy person, but we love you for it. You know, I've already made my Bears prediction on this show. It's the same. It'll be the same one that's dropping on NFL.com. Although I did switch up. I know when we talked to Braggs, I was like, yeah, maybe the Packers sweep us. And then I changed my mind on that. I'm like, I'm not going to let that be in the official record. And I did switch the one. I have Jacksonville beating us just because I want Clay Harbor to like us. No, but I don't engage with these other fan bases because I don't feel the need, like outside of work purposes. And so I had gone back to a Minnesota blog or podcast or whatever it is. And it was like, I found some podcast that somebody had made with, you know, defaming me because I said last year the Vikings were going to have 8 wins. I believe it was 8 wins. Yeah. By the way, I'm on NBC Chicago Sports Night. I'm on that show tonight. And Ruthie was teasing me about that too. And I said, listen, my prediction last year for the NFC North was like pretty spot on. I had the Bears for 10 wins, 12 wins. That should have been 10. So I count that as a win. I had the Lions with the winning record. I was 1 game off with the Packers and I gave the Vikings too many wins, but like that kind of stuff, like those guys like live in Bears Twitter. Like they don't, I don't know. It's just like one of those things like, why are you hanging out here all the time? Don't you guys have something better to do with your time and with your life than coming into Bears Twitter and worrying about what we're doing? I honestly don't care. I have not outside of, and I shouldn't admit this because I need to start paying attention to this for work purposes. But I haven't really sat down and watched what JJ McCarthy's been doing with the Minnesota Vikings. Now I've been keeping touch on Justin Jefferson going out there and signing his big extension. And so, you know, for that reason, I kind of pay attention. So I mean, professionally, I have to be, but I don't go in there. I guess what it is I'm not paying attention to Vikings Twitter, getting their pulse on what JJ McCarthy's doing. Like, hey, are you guys doing it or whatever? I heard a couple of guys at the golf course today talking about it, and that's about it. I don't really go, and I didn't even talk to them. I felt like they recognized me, and I don't know if they were trying to bait me into something, but I wasn't going to bite. Like I was like, whatever, like you guys have fun. JJ to JJ, do your thing. Speaking of which, JJ McCarthy, but let me finish this point. I don't involve myself in the Twitter universe of our NFC North rivals. And I don't know who else does. I don't know if Braggs does. I don't know if a lot of you do. What is EJ in it? I don't know. I don't know what you guys do. I don't keep track of you. Outside of our classroom, I don't keep track. I'm like a teacher. I let you guys go out and do your thing. What's Brenda? Is Brenda in somebody else's? Like, I don't know. I honestly don't know, and I don't care. I just find it fascinating. And I'm curious to anybody who's sitting here watching us tonight. If you're a Bears fan, do you spend a lot of time on Packers Twitter or Vikings? I just don't. I just have no interest in it. I don't care. I see them enough anyways. Like they're here all the time. You're like, oh, you guys are here again. Like whatever, like talking about anything, you know, I will be happy. I am happy though. They don't really like engage, like at least on Twitter, they don't engage in like when you post stuff about Mongo, like it's pretty sincere. Like, hey, people kind of acknowledge Mongo. And even like I saw a Vikings fan the other night talking about, because he's a wrestling fan, about how much he loves, like that kind of stuff's been good. But like Instagram's worse. And Instagram is actually, I don't know how it became worse than Twitter, but it is now. But I just don't engage in it because I don't care. And it's just fascinating to me, like how much the other teams love coming to Chicago Twitter and just popping off for whatever reason. For a team that's supposedly not been great for 40 years, you're hearing an awful lot. So something's it's like going to a dive, like going to the Tropicana at rest in peace Tropicana in Las Vegas. Like people talk to us about it, but like you hung out there an awful lot. So in any event, I'm assuming that's going to be even worse once the Bears start winning. Once Caleb Williams starts having some success, it's only going to get worse. And speaking of that, I'm curious. I'll start with Justin Jefferson. He signs his big deal. So now the Minnesota Vikings have engaged, given him a long-term deal. Everything is set. I know that I had mentioned that perhaps the Minnesota Vikings should think about moving him, because if you would have thought of the draft capital you could have brought back in a return, it would have been a pretty significant. Like what would a team give it up? Like what would a team like? I don't know if the Raiders are the right one. I don't know who would have been washed now. I'm trying to think like who would have been into making a deal. Because you think about the success the Kansas City Chiefs have had ever since they got rid of Tyreek Hill, and everybody thought that was good. I remember not thinking, I didn't think it was a big deal at the time. And then Willie McGinnis kind of talked me into like, no, this is a huge deal. Like, look at that AFC playoff game against the Bills, and Tyreek Hill did so much stuff. And I'm like, oh, you got some merit there, Willie. And then it didn't matter. Turns out, nope, doesn't matter. And I wondered like that with the wide receivers. But so the Vikings are on the hook for a lot of money for Justin Jefferson, which I guess you kind of need to do, because if you don't do it, you're trying to develop a young quarterback, whether it's not going to be Sam Darnold, because they're going to move on to JJ McCarthy at some point this season. You kind of want to give him the best opportunity to win, and you're not going to have to pay JJ McCarthy for a long time. So why not spend that money now on Justin Jefferson? It does make sense. It is a good move by the Minnesota Vikings. I applaud them for doing it. And it's funny because you're like, hey, we trade away Justin Jefferson, we get a first-round draft pick, we might be able to find a Justin. I know the joke. I know that the Family Guy thing. It could be a boat, whatever. Which leads me to talking about the Chicago Bears, because at some point they're going to need to make a decision about DJ Moore. And is he going to end up commanding a huge contract like some of these other players? Now, the difference with DJ Moore is that somebody like Justin Jefferson is coming off his rookie deal. I think he's playing on his 5th-year option this season. They needed to extend him. Okay, you go out and do that. DJ, I believe, is on the hook for 2 more years. Then he's going to be a little bit older. For me, and if we're thinking about the long term here with DJ Moore, I would try to lock him up. I really would. And again, we're not going to need to pay Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams for 5 years. I say that you load up DJ Moore with a contract that will pay him handsomely through the next 4 seasons. And then at that point, when it comes time to pay Caleb and when it comes time to pay Rome Odunze, you have money available there. DJ can either take a hometown discount with the Bears to stay here, or else, we wish him well and hope that Bayless Jones and Tyler Scott have developed. Keenan Allen is going to be a different situation as well, because I don't know how much of a long-term deal you can give him. But with everything that's happening with Justin Jefferson, it does lead me to think that perhaps this might be a good time to strike a deal with DJ Moore and to kind of just get that sorted. I know that we've seen, Jalen Johnson get situated at some point, Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker and all these guys. We're going to have to pay people at some point. Tevin Jenkins was even talking today about how he was looking forward to a new deal with the Chicago Bears. There's not been an offer on the table. And I think a lot of that's got to do with his health. I love him. I really do love Tevin Jenkins. I think that, when you look at the Hard Knock situation, that is going to be a guy who could be a breakout because he's got a great personality, but he's also got to show that he can stay healthy. So I wouldn't, it might take him a while to get that deal, and we'll see what happens. But I think that DJ Moore, I think that when you look at some of the contracts that are out there, I don't mind throwing the money at DJ Moore and trying to extend him and trying to keep a Super Bowl window open and hope that by the time that contract runs out, he's made his money and he's like, hey, like, I'll stay for a cheaper deal because I understand the economics of football. Who knows? That's a long time down the road. In any event, speaking of the Bears and everything that's been going on, it's time to take a look at some of the things that have been happening over the last couple of days in minicamp. Some of our friends have been there. Our friends at CHGO have been there. Stacey Dales has been there. We're going to try to get her on the line here at some point over the next couple of weeks. Hopefully she can join the show and talk about some of the observations that she's seen at camp. And I just kind of want to springboard off of something that Mark Carman put out today. Some of the observations he had from day 2 of the mini camp. And Kevin Fishbane also had that too. And this is something that was going around today, is that Caleb Williams threw an absolute just in the basket bomb to our guy, Velus Jones Jr. Oh my gosh. I'm here for this. I think about him and Tyler Scott as two guys that people are not talking about pretty much at all. You know, they're talking about the big three, and I think that's the best, and that's the best thing for them. I think that, you know, had you come into the season, let's say, and this is one of the things that I really appreciate about Ryan Poles and what he did during the draft. And, you know, I understand a lot of people question the fact that they went for Odunze and why didn't you go out and get a lineman? But I feel like the old Bears would have traded for Keenan Allen and been like, all right, we're good at receiver, and then walked away. And we would have been counting on Tyler Scott or Velus Jones to step up and be that number 2 guy or number 3 guy, and counting on him. Like, we need to have it, not in a, I hope you develop, but like, we need you to play well. But because you have Keenan Allen and Odunze, now we get the luxury of sitting here when Velus makes a great play, when Tyler makes a great play, we're like, oh, it's pretty cool. Like, yeah, keep doing it. Keep developing. Keep doing what you're doing. We don't need you to headline yet. It's kind of like going to the Comedy Store. Like, you don't want some person who has 7 minutes of material going out there and headlining. Yeah, let Bill Burr do all the heavy lifting. Anthony Jeselnik can go out there and make all the jokes. You go do your solid 8 to 10. Then let somebody else come in and take over and finish it off. And I think that's kind of the situation. So when I hear, and everybody's been talking about, even Ruthie asked me about it on NBC Sports Chicago, you know, she was out there and like, it is cool to see Velus go out there and make a huge play. And again, and we don't need it. And it's just like house money. You know, it's not like, hey man, we don't need this as a chance to win, but we need this as a it's a luxury item at this point. I don't know. In any event, listen, joining the show right now, we have one of our friends joining us. It's been a minute since he's been on, but he was one of our favorite players in the NFL for quite some time. I always appreciated him because, you know me, one of my segments on NFL Fantasy Live is the That Helps No One. But you know what? This guy went from a That Helps No One guy to a must start in fantasy. He spent time with the Philadelphia Eagles, Jacksonville, the Chicago Bears. He's a Chicago boy. And then if you didn't know him from that, you knew him from The Bachelor. And he's been awesome. And he's been awesome on the show. So please welcome back our friend Clay Harbor, who is joining us. Clay, it is so good to see you again.
You had to do it, man. You had to throw on the Bachelor plug, huh?
What's wrong with that? That's a well-known franchise. That's something to be proud. Like, it's been a springboard for a lot of people. I don't think it's something you run away from.
No, yeah, no, it was a fun time, Adam. You know, it was definitely an interesting time, interesting phase. A lot of correlations there between The Bachelor and and professional football. You know, you got a lot of testosterone in the house. You're talking 30 guys going for one girl, then you got all the guys in the position group going for one position, trying to make one roster. So there are some similarities there, believe it or not, between The Bachelor and the NFL.
Well, I'll say this too, is like when you went on it, like we obviously knew you from the NFL. I'm like, this is the thing is when something like this happens, you're like, please be cool. I think that was the number one. Like, I hope this guy's cool. And you were, and I thought that was pretty cool. You and the grocery store guy, I'm like, all right, you guys are pretty cool. And grocery store Joe. So I'm like, listen, you guys were cool guys. And I think you acquitted yourself quite nicely. So I thought it was a good, I would not run from that, Clay. I think you should be proud of it. As proud as you are, or probably should be more proud of playing in the NFL, but still, like, don't be ashamed of that. But let's talk about the Chicago Bears. What do you think? We haven't talked since the draft. How are you feeling since the team added Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze?
Yeah, so obviously I was a guy, I like Justin.
Yeah.
I thought that he didn't get the best shake just because of the weapons he had around him. Obviously going from coordinator to coordinator, his first year, coming in, not taking any reps in OTAs, training camp. I don't think you get an opportunity to really have a fair shake when you're not playing with that first team, not going against the first team defense. All that stuff's important with the offseason, especially with the small amount of time you get now compared to what we got back in the day. If you look back in the day, Adam, we didn't have 1, 2, 3, 4, like 10 OTAs. You just showed up and there was just endless OTAs. You had about 20 of them. And then mandatory minicamp on top of that. And then training camp, there was no limits for 2 days of practice and then a day of rest. You were going full pads, 2-a-days every day. You just had more time. So you could develop these guys a little bit more. So obviously every snap was important. So I didn't have a good taste in my mouth from that. But when we did get to the draft and you got to started watching some film on Caleb, it started to make more sense. The contract situation, the type of player he can be inside and outside the pocket. Obviously, everybody knows the YouTube highlights that you see, but this guy can play on time. He can do the 3-step slant. He can do the 5-step over the middle, and that stuff you saw in college. Obviously, it's going to be different in the league. And then Rome Odunze. I mean, there's guys in the Bears that had them at 2 or 3 on their board. And to me, he wasn't the flashiest, wasn't the most athletic, the fastest receiver, but he was the most ready right now. And to bring him in with Caleb, they can grow together. They can be friends. You can kind of throw ideas off this guy, study together, go get throwing sessions in. I think that's huge. And those are the guys that you're closest with, the guys in your draft class. So I was extremely happy with what the Bears were able to do. Didn't have to get up a pick to get Odunze. And then obviously Caleb Williams. Everybody's excited about him. So I thought all in all, Ryan Poles had an excellent offseason.
No, I agree with you 100%. And similarly, and I know we had talked about this previously, like we both love Justin Fields. I echoed the same sentiments you did. He never got a fair shake, but you understand more than anybody the business of football, and timing is probably more important than anything else in this league. And it's been unfortunate for Justin, and which is why I wish him well in Pittsburgh. I'm going to continue to cheer for him and support him. Wish it could have worked out in Chicago, but we've got a new guy right now. And I was talking about this at the top of the show. We've seen a lot of personality from Caleb Williams over a short period of time. He's doing the claw. He's out there engaging with the fans. They're chanting Green Bay sucks. Do you, as a player, from a player's perspective, now the fans, as a fan, I love that. As a player, if you saw your quarterback doing that kind of stuff, is it cringy, or are you kind of like, hey, that's kind of cool. I kind of appreciate what he's got going on.
I got an unpopular opinion on this one,
okay.
Adam, and I think a quarterback is supposed to be different. I was able to play. I didn't have a long time in New England, but was able to play with New England, get to see how Tom Brady does things. Was able to play in Detroit. Was able to see how a guy like Matt Stafford does things. Was able to play with some solid quarterbacks. Drew Brees. Was able to play with Drew Brees, see how Drew Brees does things. Those guys are so locked in. They're studying their film. They're not out. And I know Caleb's a young guy, and you got to have fun. And there's something to be said for building camaraderie. But as a quarterback, have your fun like now, but obviously as you get closer to season, you can't be doing that during that part of season. I don't even want to say this, but here we go. No. I was out one night in Chicago, and it was a couple days before a big game, Monday Night Football, and it was a friend's birthday, and I was at Tao nightclub, and I saw Justin Fields in the bottle service section of Tao nightclub, and to me, I go, Aaron Rodgers are playing the Packers Monday Night Football 2 years ago. I go, Aaron Rodgers is not out, having drinks with his friends when the Bears are playing them in 2 weeks. So to me, A successful quarterback is a guy that you have to be more locked in than the rest of the guys. Your friend,
Yeah.
you have teammates, but it's not even the same game for you. That's why you get compensated so well if you're good at it, because it is a different ball game and it's hard. And I like that you're getting the fans excited and you're out there with your friends. And I think right now your OTAs, you got some free time. Yeah, there's some time to do that in the offseason. But as you get closer to season, you got to be all football for that amount of time, learning a game plan, looking at coverages. You're obviously right now you're hearing there's trouble with the cadence. That stuff, regurgitating the plays that you're getting over the headset. I don't know if you have a wristband. I don't know how they're calling it right now with Waldron's system. But to me, you got to be locked in, man. And I'm all for having a little bit of fun. But as you get closer to the season, you're going to have to lock in a little bit more. And I wouldn't want to see if I was a player on that team and I go, and I'm going on social media and I'm seeing the guys were out, and we have a game next week or something like that, even if it's a bye week, rest, recover. And that's something that I've seen all the great quarterbacks have done. And then the quarterbacks that weren't so great, I love a guy like Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles was a guy that liked to have fun. And sometimes your on-field play doesn't keep up to that level because it's about consistency and doing things right consistently. Sometimes it's not fun, but it's difficult. And it's the right thing to do.
Do you think that there's a veteran in that team right now who has probably approached him and been like, hey, it's fun. Like exactly like you said, like, hey, it's June 5th. This has been cool, but like, you got to knock it off, lock in right now. Is it something can Kevin Byard, who just signed during this offseason, and he's going to be a veteran presence for that team. Are there people in place who can be like expressing the message that you're expressing right now?
Yeah, I mean, a veteran could definitely take him under his wing and say something like, hey, man, like have some fun now. Just realize that the age that we live in, and obviously Caleb is a celebrity already. He's a guy that's lived in LA. He's lived that celebrity lifestyle and everything. But listen, it's going to be big news. And you're the quarterback. You're supposed to be the professional, the guy that everybody looks to. You're supposed to be so locked in. I know it's a new age now, and back in the day it was a little bit different. But chanting Green Bay sucks before you take a snap in the NFL, I don't know if I want my quarterback, doing that, and it's as a player, if I'm in that locker room, I would maybe think, and that was just me. I was more of a guy that I'm in the locker room. I'm one of the first guys in, one of the last guys I like watching the extra film at the stadium. So the coaches could see me doing it, in the locker room, in the weight room, a little extra. But, it's a fine line because, okay, yes, it's in June. And he's not going to have that opportunity come season. But if you get closer to season, you're in training camp, you get a couple off days or a bye week before a game, you get the fast Friday practices so you can go home and rest and watch film. If you start seeing some of that stuff pop up, during season, preseason, that's when you start to worry about it. So for me, that's why I'm not super, hey, this is tough. I don't want my quarterback to do that. But there is that fine line where it's like, man, you're supposed to be professional.
Yeah.
And just seeing a guy like Tom, Drew, guys I've played with in the past and how they handled those things. And then the guys that didn't, it was clear to me which guy was successful and which guy wasn't.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I did like too, that he showed up at DJ Moore's camp and he's still, been there for his teammates. So I'm giving him a little bit of grace because of the time of the year. I just I don't know. For me, like I look at it and I'm like, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks come to Chicago, from Jay Cutler to all these guys, and Mitch Trubisky, everybody else. And but it feels like Caleb, at least, like I can't remember a quarterback who seemed this excited to be the Bears quarterback, who's kind of like bought in with the fan base, ready to throw down with the fan base. And there is something to that I kind of find refreshing.
And we got to remember this kid is 22 years old, right? So it's like, at 22, a lot of times you're not thinking the way you would think as an adult, and you get obviously you're an adult, but as you get a little older and you mature, because like I'm saying, I've been with these quarterbacks and those guys were obviously in a different stage of their career. I can't speak how they were at 22 years old. How I was at 22 years old, a senior in college, coming into the NFL, different guy than I was later in my career. But you got to realize you're the number one draft pick. You're playing for the Chicago Bears, who would do anything for quarterback. Never have a quarterback throw for 30 touchdowns or 3,000 yards. You got this unbelievable opportunity with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Odunze, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, one of the top tight end groups, one of the top wide receiver groups. O-line is still a question mark, but I think they're good. You have an unbelievable opportunity to come in this year and to make something happen. And if he plays well, I think he's got the pieces around him to make the playoffs. Playoffs? Yeah, I want to see it, Adam. Playoffs. I mean, I think that they have the team to be able to do some of that stuff. So I think, you got to lock in. I get it. It's June. You're 22. You're enjoying your new city. You want to see some of it, but maybe a little more low key. I don't know. I think he's having fun. It's all in good fun. But, as like you said, as a player in that locker room, I would probably think, okay, it's cool for now, but let's focus up, man, because as soon as some stuff starts going wrong, you're going to have some bad games. You're going to have a bad 2-game stretch. You're going to have a rough stretch in training camp, probably. You're probably going to have a rough stretch in the preseason at some point. People are going to start pointing to that and saying, hey, are we celebrating at Old Crow in Wrigleyville now? And the funny thing about that is you brought up Grocery Store Joe earlier. Me and him were actually at the Cubs game, and we went to Old Crow before that. And
no way.
The Bears guys. But, me and Grocery Store Joe.
Oh my gosh, how cool! See, I don't know who I would have wanted to hang out with more. I would have gone over with. I would have gone with you. You're my friend, so I would have gone over and hung out with you, 100%. But you talk about the mini camps. Like, he's been playing pretty well. Like, there's been some good things and some bad things at mini camp for a young quarterback, regardless of who it is. How common is it just that, like, mistakes that are going to happen in mini camp? Because for me, I would rather have these mistakes crop up right now because you correct it. Like, you correct things in practice. That's why you go to the driving range or go to the batting cage or do anything like that. Is it a big concern if something goes wrong, if he throws a pick? I know he's done it back-to-back days where he's thrown picks over the middle. Is it a concern right now, or is it just a quarterback growing and learning on the job?
You got to expect that. I mean, it's hard to go into a new offense regardless of who you are at quarterback, and then to be a rookie coming in the league for the first time. And the Bears defense, man, I mean, we saw how they finished the year. They finished the year, and you heard Keenan Allen talking, saying, hey, they sound like a top 5 defense. They look like a top 5 defense. And he's a guy that when he talks, I listen. He's a veteran. DJ Moore called him a vet's vet. He's one of those guys that has been there, done it consistently year in, year out. When he's saying that, you start to, you believe it. So he's going against a good defense. And that's something that's going to be important. You're playing against these guys that played at a high level. The defensive backfield, this defensive backfield is one of the best in the league. At least they were, and I think they will be. The linebacking crew, I think they're one of the best linebacking duos in the league. You can even throw Sandman in there, one of the best linebacking trios in there.
Let's go Jack Sanborn. Let's get some love for him.
Let's go. So him playing against a high-level team, and he's going to have some ups and downs. The fact is he's having some ups, to me, is more impressive than the downs. I mean, if he came in right away and started dicing this defense up, that's a rookie, 22-year-old.
We'd be worried about the defense.
You'd be worried about the defense. So to me, this is good signs. People need to relax. Whenever they hear somebody on Twitter say, hey, Caleb threw a pick today, it's going to happen in practice. Everybody's going to have a play here or there. But what the thing is, you got to learn from it, and you want to learn from it now. I can tell you a bunch of times early in my career, going in and figuring stuff out as a rookie, blocking in Missouri State University, I could just fire off and maul these guys and, use my athleticism and strength to beat them. I go into my first NFL training camp. I whipped on a few blocks, but guess what I learned? You can't do that. You got to have your steps, your feet, your pad level, the snap count, your face, your hands. It was a technique. And learning that and making those mistakes and everything you do is good because, it's not like you fail. You only fail when you quit. Failure is learning. So to me, those picks, those mistakes are actually a good thing if you learn from them.
Yeah, because you want to know how to, what you can get away with on the NFL level, like how small those windows are and everything like that. And you touched on Keenan Allen. How big of an addition was that? Because when the Bears traded for him, he's been one of my favorite players in the league for quite some time. I got an opportunity to meet him at the NFL Network a couple of years ago when I was hosting the Madden show. Always been a big fan of his, and now he comes to the Bears, and it really symbolized. I think that this trio with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Odunze, I think it's hard to find a trio that's better in the NFL. How much is Keenan Allen going to help the development of Caleb Williams?
I think it's huge. Not only going to help the development of Caleb, I think he helps the development of the other top 10 draft pick, which is going to be even bigger. He's going to be able to help Caleb by giving him something here or there, hey, like helping him with coverages. But what he's going to be able to do for Rome is going to be huge. You can't forget, this is another top 10 draft pick that has huge implications on how good your offense is going to be for years to come. To have that guy in the room with, I can tell you, learn from Brent Selleck, finding out the ways, how to block, how to run routes. I mean, that's huge. If I didn't have a guy like that there, if a lot of these younger guys don't have a guy to look at and to see how they do it and kind of implement their routine, their regiment, that's going to be huge. Seeing how Keenan has been able to stay in the league, I'm sure he has a great weight room protocol. He has a cold tub, hot tub, steam room, catches his balls before practice, his route running. There's so many things that he's going to help Rome with. And even the tight ends will learn stuff from Keenan, the way he's one of the best route runners in the league. I've watched this guy for years. His routes are incredible route runner. And he's not the quickest guy. He's just so savvy, which to me means he knows how to play leverage. So you see cover two, got a linebacker on you in the middle. He can't let you in the middle. So you're going to break out. Press him that he's going to do whatever he can to keep you out the middle. So he's going to give more ground. Cover three, you got a one high safety. You realize these corners, you can threaten a vertical. These guys got that back quarter. They got that back third. So he's going to be able to help these guys with the routes, with the coverages. I think Rome is going to be the biggest benefactor of that, being able to see this guy. And then obviously Caleb, because you got one of the best route runners in the NFL. And a vet that has played with some great quarterbacks too. I mean, Phillip Rivers, Justin Herbert, he's had some great quarterbacks. He's going to be able to give them things that these guys did and that he saw from them, how they had their routine and saw things to now down to Caleb. So I think it's a huge thing. And then let's talk about 4th round pick. If he leaves next year in free agency, you'll get a compensatory pick. Nobody knows how they really do but they will get a 3rd or a 4th round pick next year for Keenan Allen. So you're literally renting this guy for a year if you want. If he has a good year, re-sign him. Obviously, the wide receiver market is crazy, but you will get a pick in return. So Ryan Poles, A+ there.
No, I love that move. I could not have been more impressed. And, it's been debated a little bit because a lot of people thought perhaps the Bears should trade down from the number 9 pick, maybe gone with an offensive lineman. I feel like Rome was the perfect pick. I think that symbolizes a new direction of the Chicago Bears, because in the past they would have drafted Keenan Allen and been like, okay, we're good. We'll just have Tyler Scott or Velus Jones. One of you guys needs to step up. But instead they go out there and get Rome. Do you think that was the right pick as well?
I do. And for having him available there, it's hard to pass up. The big guy too. And obviously we've all talked about his contested catches. When you have a guy you can throw the ball to when he's not 100% open, and you have confidence in him being able to go up and get the ball, this guy's big too, 6'2". He can run a 4.4, almost a 40-inch vertical. The guy is just a big athletic guy. Had the best contested catch rate in college football last year, according to Pro Football Focus. He can go up and get the ball. So I think you're right, Adam, when you say, as a Bears fan, lifelong Bears fans, you're symbolizing a change here. Instead of going with the defensive end, the linebacker, the defensive player, you're now giving your quarterback a weapon. You're giving him another weapon. You're saying, we are going to take care of our quarterback. We know this league has changed into offensive league. Chicago is going to be defensive run game. That's what we've always been known for. But drafting the big wide receiver at 9, I love it. Take care of your quarterback. Give him another weapon that he can grow with together. So to me, I think it was the perfect pick. Obviously, now I think we still got a gaping hole at that edge rusher position. I think they're putting a lot of trust into Gervon Dexter in the middle and Zach Pickens there at your 3 technique, and obviously DeMarcus Walker at your opposite edge. Obviously Montez Sweat is that multiplier. They're going to slide the protections to him, but I still think you need another guy in that D-line.
I was going to say there's no way that they don't address this at some point, whether it's bringing back in Yannick Ngakoue, whether it's making a trade for somebody like Jonathan Allen. There has to be another move, right? I think Ryan Poles is just waiting his time. I can't imagine this is the defensive line that they're going to roll with.
Yeah, there's going to be another, like there's typically another free agency, right? And it's after like OTAs, you see what you got in some of the young guys. And I know you got Austin Booker there too. See what we got. Can he be a guy that steps up? And I really liked him. I thought it was a good trade. I saw him as a 4th round pick instead of a 5th round pick. They gave up next year's 4th. So I think it was a good deal. But after you see what you got in OTAs, now you go back and say, okay, what do you need? I've been a guy that's been called after OTAs before training camp. Then now you get the vets. You go, okay, this position is weak. We really need to reinforce this, and let's see what there's out there. It's like, okay, this guy's a veteran. He's been shown that he can come in, he can pick up a defense, he can rush the passer. He's a guy that, is a good run stuffer. He can apply a little bit of pressure through the middle. So I think after OTAs, I'd say it typically happens like 2 to 3 weeks before training camp. You bring a guy in for a workout and you see what he can do, and then you sign him. So to me, I think at that second level of free agency, 3rd level even, then you will see the Bears make a move for another defensive lineman. Because, they got to, because I come in, I don't even have to look at the game plan, Adam. I'm a tight end. I'm chipping Montez Sweat. We're chipping Sweat, and we're sliding to Sweat. Okay, yeah. That's what we're doing. So another guy would take some of that onus off of him.
Yeah, I would even imagine they could be going after Ngakoue once again and still making an additional move, trying to fortify it as much as possible. Because to me, it's similar to like 2018, where they set up everything for that season, went out there and won the North. And of course, in August, they made a trade for Khalil Mack. I think something like that is also brewing for this team at some point.
Yeah, the time is now. I think it depends how confident you are with Caleb. If you get out of here and you're confident with Caleb and say, okay, we've seen enough growth. We see he can pick up this offense and he can play, at a level that is high enough with this team, with this defense, that we can make a mark now. You got to make the move. I know it's a rookie quarterback. People keep saying that, hasn't taken a snap in the league, but I see another move coming. And Ryan Poles, to me, isn't a guy that's just going to let a hole like that slide. We can all see it. We've all watched the games, the tape. We know what they got there last year. Like you said, they even had Ngakoue there. So maybe you bring back Ngakoue. I haven't looked and saw who else is out there, but there's always a veteran guy that can come in and have an impact. And those guys can be good in the locker room. They've taken snaps. Obviously, then now you're taking snaps away from some of the other veterans to keep their legs fresh, and you're going to have injuries. What happens if Montez Sweat goes down for 4 or 5 games? Right. Now you're really in a world of hurt. To me, he might be the most important guy in the roster besides Caleb Williams. Then it's Badgett time again.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that. So you got to build, the depth there and everything like that. So what is the expectation, though? I know you mentioned it. You alluded to it previously. What is your expectation? How many wins are you looking at for the Bears this season? 7 last year. But I always say this, like they had 7 wins last year. They had 3 games where they had over a 90% chance of winning in the 4th quarter. They found a way to lose those. I say, those should have been wins. That should have been a 10-win team last year. What are you looking at this season win-wise for the Chicago Bears?
I'm going to be conservative because I don't want to get too carried away, but I think they're a 9-win team. Maybe they could pull out 10. Maybe they go 8. It depends how that ball bounces. But I see between 8 to 10 wins, somewhere in that range. Anything less, I'd be a little bit disappointed with how the season turned out. But like you said, Adam, the Lions game, I think it was like a 98% chance.
Oh, it's crazy.
And the game's all but over. Then somehow you lose that game. And who's the biggest, toughest team in the division? The Lions. You should have beaten them twice.
Twice, yeah.
Right? Green Bay obviously had our number. They got after us the first game. And then also, I was hoping the last game it would have been nice. The Bears knocked them out the playoffs. Couldn't do it. So Green Bay is going to be tough. Minnesota, J.J. McCarthy doesn't really scare me. Obviously, we don't know who's going to start at quarterback there. But I think this division, the Bears can cause some problems. They always play the Lions well. And then they have a great schedule. They're playing the AFC South. I think, there's been ups and downs of people talking about the schedule. They got one of the easier. If you look at last year's schedules, NFL, and I love how it starts. I know some people are like, why are you waiting? You don't have to play your divisional schedule until the second half of the season, which is perfect. Perfect for Caleb Williams. You want people to say they don't know if they like the schedule. This guy gets
Love
all
it.
that experience, and he needs that experience more than a veteran quarterback. And now you have the experience when the division starts. Now you know who you are as a team. Now you know who's your go-to running backs. They're going to be Swift. You can get a little more Roshan Johnson. What's Herbert's role? How are we going to implement these wide receivers? Shane Waldron's likes to use 2 tight end sets. Gerald Everett, you're going to play him a lot. Like, how is he going to be implemented with Kmet? So now you start to iron all these things out, figure out who you are as a defense. I think it's a perfect schedule. So 8, 9, 10 wins is what I'm thinking. I would say 9 if you had to give me, a number. But if you say over, under 9, I would probably say over.
Yeah, obviously I'm always one of the most optimistic guys, so my number is going to be way higher. But I think, is it more important, though, to have wins where you're looking at like 12 wins, or is it going through a season and having it being undeniable that Caleb Williams is the person? Like, in some sense, do you feel like it doesn't matter how many we win, but if Caleb Williams shows that he's the quarterback of the future and the quarterback that we think he's going to be, then that's pretty much all that matters?
Yeah, that's the most important thing, I think, is just Caleb Williams showing out. But, C.J. Stroud kind of changed things last year.
Right, yeah, a little bit.
Seeing a rookie do that, you haven't seen that since Dan Marino, man. And I wasn't even around then. It was back in, 84?
It was 83. Yeah, it's 83. They went to 80 and 84. In his second season, they went to the Super Bowl. And so, but that's been it until C.J. Stroud.
So to me, he's obviously changed things, and people are already comparing, can Caleb be what C.J. Stroud is? I think that's unfair, but I think he has the weapons around him, and I think there's a possibility he could be a guy similar to C.J. Stroud this year. And to answer the question, yes, it's 100% seeing if Caleb Williams is a guy. His success over anything else is the most important, but you set him up with it right now. If you keep these guys healthy, he's going to have a lot of weapons over there, and then you keep the offensive line healthy. I like Shane Waldron, what he's able to do with Geno Smith when he came in from being a guy who was throwing some of the most interceptions in the league, had one of the worst completion percentages in the league, to a guy that was a Pro Bowler and led the league in completion percentage is pretty incredible. So I like the addition of Waldron. So I think he's really in a good position to be successful.
I agree. Let me ask you this, because I know you have ties to the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. So Trevor Lawrence, I think, is a very good quarterback. He's had back-to-back 4,000-yard seasons. I bring this up because, people talk about generational talent, and some of the fans who are, I guess, haters, for lack of a better term, will be like, oh, the last generational talent was Trevor Lawrence. And I'm like, yeah, Trevor Lawrence is pretty good. Like, how do you feel about Trevor? Like if Caleb comes out and plays like Trevor Lawrence, then I feel pretty good about my life right now.
Yeah, we got to remember Trevor Lawrence's first year under Urban Meyer was just a complete train.
That doesn't matter.
Throw that out the window. Then the next year you come back, Trevor wins a playoff game. He comes back from 28 points, 27 points, something like that. We're going to play playoff game against Justin Herbert. I think obviously last year, before he got injured, he had some of the best statistics in the league. And after he got injured, obviously playing hurt, there was a drop there. Jackson was actually in first place at one point in the AFC. And I'm not talking about the first couple of games. This is after week 10. He said obviously that complete drop-off with injuries to Kirk, Ridley, Lawrence. But I think Trevor Lawrence is still a guy. And I know every quarterback has drop passes, but watching all those Jaguars games, he had more drop passes than anyone I could imagine. It was ridiculous. Dropped touchdowns, dropped long passes. I'm like, what is going on here? So I'm still a believer in Trevor, and I think Doug Peterson might take over the play calling this year. Press Taylor has been the offensive coordinator for the couple years. The other thing is, he did lose some of his support staff, which I don't think is a big issue. You had Jim Bob Cooter, you had Mike McCoy, you had some guys that were former offensive coordinators, former quarterbacks coach that left, but he did still start the year hot. And everything I've seen in Trevor, I think he still got it. And that O-line, they brought in Mitch Morse from the Bills, and last year Luke Fortner was it was a revolving door at center, and he had pressure in his face a lot. So I think that's going to help him a lot as well. And I know he lost Ridley, but Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., Calvin Ridley.
Oh, Brian Thomas Jr. is a great pick for them. Yeah.
Unbelievable. If it's a normal year, he's one of the most talented receivers. Guy had 17 touchdowns last year.
Oh, my God. I know this, and for fantasy, too, it's just like Brian Thomas Jr. is going to have so many bombs this year because like that's his game, and it's going to be huge for Trevor Lawrence.
And he fits in well with Calvin Ridley being that slot machine, Gabe Davis being more of that guy that can do a little bit of both. And then the deep threat with Brian Thomas Jr. and then Evan Ingram is one of the most underrated tight ends in the league. I think that's because he's split out a lot more than some other tight ends. And, he doesn't do the inline stuff, but I think he's very underrated. He had over 100 catches last year. I mean, he's a good player.
Yeah. And not to turn this into Jags talk, but it's like, people forget, like as great as CJ Stroud was, and he had an excellent rookie season and they went to the playoffs and did their thing. Like if Jacksonville doesn't have those injuries, Jacksonville wins that division. Nobody's talking about Houston. Then your whole perception of Houston is different of like, that's a good team and they're on the rise. But because Jacksonville fell off, then suddenly the Texans are now the Packers from 6. It's just like, okay, fine, but we'll see what happens. But if the worst case scenario is that the Caleb Williams is playing like Trevor Lawrence, that's a good thing. And I knew you would be in concert with that because like the heat that's been on Trevor Lawrence has been ridiculous to me. And I have no other place to vent it but to you. And I'm upset about it, but I think he's very good. And I think Caleb's going to be very good as well.
Yeah, Trevor's gonna be just fine. And I know the haters are comparing his stats to you see the Daniel Jones and
like the Gardner Minshew and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, okay, stop it, everybody.
Trevor is going to be just fine. This guy is that dude. And I've watched him in training camp, the way he works, seen them during practice. He's a guy that is diligent, that is putting the time in, the work in, and is gonna keep improving and getting better. So Trevor will be that guy. He will continue to be that guy. And it's going to be interesting because that division has a lot of good quarterbacks now.
Yeah. And Will Levis. No, I'm kidding. We'll see Will Levis. Listen, the Bears will see Will Levis. It's funny because all the Titan fans and our producers, Sammy and Anello, are big Titan guys. And they're like, how are you feeling about week 1? And I said, like, listen, no disrespect, but if you're going up against a rookie, a first-time head coach and Will Levis, I feel pretty good about week 1. And that's not a disrespect to the Titans organization or how good they could eventually be. But you couldn't ask for anything more for a week 1 game.
I know, but they got Ridley. He's got Hopkins. I mean, they got some weapons. So to me, it's all obviously comes down to Will Levis, right? Yeah. How is he going to perform against the Bears defense? So I think that, the Bears can really, really take control by the defense shutting him down. And I think the rest should fall into place. And I would obviously take Caleb over Will Levis, even without seeing him take snaps. But I mean, he had some ups and downs last year. He had some good plays, but I mean, I still didn't see the consistency that you would want to see from your quarterback.
No, and he could develop into a nice player. I don't want to take anything away from him, but I think when you have a defensive-minded head coach going up against a inexperienced quarterback, I'm always going to default because like that's the whole thing. When week 2, when the Bears go to Houston, and you're like, I know Greg Braggs and I were on last week or 2 weeks ago, and we're talking about like the predictions. You're like, DeMeco Ryans against a rookie quarterback. Like, okay, like objectively, you should take the tech like for that reason. Yeah, but I still like Caleb for that.
I played with DeMeco. I mean, really intelligent guy, man. He's a guy I mean, just a great leader, a freaking weight room guy, did everything right. So it's going to be tough, but I think the Bears can still pull that one out.
Yeah, I know that we keep predicting loss because we want to seem objective, but it's like, I don't need to just throw that one away, but I do have a lot of respect for DeMeco Ryans. I love that hire last year, and I loved Bobby Slowick as the offensive coordinator. I thought that was pretty good too. And eventually he will be a head coach. So, a toughest kind of couple of games, but very 2 winnable games to start the season. So I feel good about the Bears. And I know that hopefully Caleb calms down, gets more focused. By the way, let me ask you this too, because we were talking about Keenan Allen before. Now Caleb comes into the NFL wearing 13. He wore 13 at Oklahoma and USC. Keenan Allen comes to Chicago wearing 13. Caleb immediately defers. Let's Keenan take number 13. Caleb's now 18. Does that say something though? I mean, like, obviously, he's doing some goofball stuff, but I'm like, I kind of like the savviness of like, no, sir, you take 13. Even if Keenan's going to be here for a year, he still was like, you take 13. I will change my number.
Yeah, to me, it's like all these reports coming out, like up and down game practice, throwing interception. The thing that's been most important to me is like, everybody that you hear that's like all the teammates are like, yeah, we love this guy. Like this guy's a competitor. You get to meet him and you really see what kind of person he is. Because that's an issue if you come in and you think you're like too big, the first round pick. So to me, that's huge. These guys come in, he's deferred to Keenan with his number. He's kind of shown like, hey, I'm here to work. You hear the reports about him texting his coaches late at night in the playbook, trying to figure out, okay, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And a guy that does want to learn, and that's not coming in thinking like, hey, I don't have to work. It's just going to come to me. Because some of the guys are super talented, especially number one pick. You might not see that from them. So to me, those reports are just as important, if not more important, than hey, he had an up and down day at practice, or he did this or did that. So kind of seeing what personality he has, what kind of person he is in the locker room and with the guys. So that's important too.
Yeah, it's huge for me. And so I'm excited. Obviously, by sitting here talking about this, I'm more excited. Can't wait for everything to get underway and to go out there and see what this team is going to do this offseason. But do want to thank you for being here. Where can everybody find you on social media? What do you got going on these days?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter, ClayHarbs82, and I post all my stuff on there, and be talking Bears, Jags, Eagles. Those are my three teams. I obviously played for two of them. Never played for the Bears, but I'm here in beautiful downtown Chicago.
But you're a Bears guy. But you're still a Bears guy because you're a Chicago person.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't hear any sirens, but I'm right downtown. I'm here. I'm a Bears guy, born and raised in the Chicago area. Born and raised a Bears fan. My dad still tells stories about the '85 Bears. So, no, absolutely, man. Looking forward to this season as well. And I mean, vibes are high right now, Adam. Vibes are high.
No, and I always appreciate you seeing around, and I see you on the various TV shows and you bounce around and all the content that you're putting out there. Always appreciate it. Always appreciate your insights, and we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Let's not make it as long next time, but we will see you again very soon.
Absolutely. Sounds good, Adam. Appreciate it, man.
All right. We'll see you later. There he goes. The great Clay Harbor. Appreciate him coming in. And listen, I appreciate his perspective, and I understand where I'm glad that he said what he said about Caleb Williams, because I think I understand that there's going to be a lot of people who feel that way. And I think it's great. And you're absolutely right. The main thing that I want to see at some point is that, as long as he's buckled down when it comes time to play football, I think that is going to be the most important thing. If he goes out there, starts throwing for 250 yards and leading our team to victories, you can do whatever you want. So look forward to seeing what's going on. Thanks again to everybody for being here. Thanks to Sam and Danilo for putting everything together. We do appreciate it. By the way, quick shout out to Game Room Chicago. We appreciate their support over the years, everything that they have done. If you're ever in the Chicago area, if you're down there by the, not the Miracle Mile, but it's down by the park, the Bean. It's right there, Game Room Chicago. Yeah, it's a fun place. You know what? If you've never been to the historic Chicago Athletic Association Hotel, I implore you to go check it out. Great bar. No cover charge or anything. Just go hang out, play some shuffleboard, and you won't be disappointed. So we will be back next week. Again, we're working on getting Stacey Dales here. Sean Merriman is going to be joining us here. Just get an outsider's perspective. Let's see what some of the people outside of our Bears bubble are thinking. So in any event, until that time, thank you so much. Bear down, and Sammy, play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.